afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another Propagandacast Addendum. We're off here to have a look at the new commanders available with the two new armies, of course. More specifically, we're looking at the standard loadout, what you get from the start. None of the sort of more available through the war spoils, because, well, the war spoil system so far has been rather stingy towards me. I've been getting very little, and so far, in fact, I've been almost largely been getting duplicates. There's not really much to do there. But the sort of the three starting commanders for each army, I will be making videos once I get a hold of the new commanders as well, or the additional commanders, the ones unlocked for war spells, once I can. So then, the new commanders we're having first here, the airborne commander. A bit of a, return from the old company of heroes, with a few new additions. Pathfinders. Have 50 caliber machine guns. You didn't really get those, of course. You didn't really drop machine guns, well, to a certain extent, though that's more for a supply drop. Get paratroopers, rather common. Also the anti-tank gun, though note, none of the dropped equipment actually has any crew on it, so that's something you actually have to provide yourself when using it. And also both of them actually cost the exact same as getting the unit otherwise. So when you're using this, you're using it because you can't get them otherwise, because you didn't tech for it, or because you want it right now, right there at the front line. So keep that in mind while utilizing it. And you also get the P-47 Rocket Strike, rather expensive, but sort of allows you to sort of flew in and knock some stuff out. The note, it only targets vehicles. It can damage anything around it as well. Say if there's a lot of infantry near the enemy tank, that will likely die horribly, but if there's only infantry, calling it in will do nothing. So keep that in mind while using it. And then the Pathfinder, of course, they are rather specific unit, a sort of four-man squad. Not necessarily very impressive in combat, though they do have a sniper ability to sort of maybe snipe a bit of units with lower health, and overall they can sort of be alright in a firefight as long as they don't have to fight it on their own. They're a good supporting squad. What they do also provide is they rather allow you to sort of more safely call in the paratroopers, because the paratroopers, when they're called in, there's a sort of aura which when they're called in, and the more obstacles there are there, the more likely someone's not going to have a safe landing. You can fix that with Pathfinders, particularly if they can lay down a bit of equipment. These aura simply drops into a very small area, and you can very safely call them in. So that's rather a good thing about them. Also, that little piece of equipment they allow to call them in also allows the paratroopers to reinforce near it. So in that regard, it can also be quite handy in that department and allow it to serve as a forward reinforcement point, but only for the paratroopers. No other units can, only the paratroopers. But again, it can be a very nasty combination, particularly when you consider that paratroopers can be a very powerful infantry, and they can be upgraded with the Thompsons or the very powerful Browning light machine guns. So keep that very much in mind, and you'll get a lot out of this commander. You might ask yourself, what kind of commanders? This is more for the aggressive mobile commander who doesn't necessarily want to play a lot with the other doctrines. It's actually just, I want 50 calibers, I want anti-tank guns, I want something better than riflemen. This airborne commander is very much for you then, sort of very fluid, very mobile, very aggressive, but not so dependent on your regular infantry to a certain extent. Though, of course, if you're just playing paratroopers, you're going to find yourself short on manpower pretty quickly, so of course you can't go fully in there, but it certainly offers up for some fluid mobile play. And note, you actually don't have to have line of sight to call in paratroopers. You can actually call them in behind enemy lines into, say, their fuel point and take it that way. So a neat little trick there. Moving on, we have the infantry company commander. A bit of an interesting one as well. You got half-tracks, mortar half-tracks more specifically, rifleman field defences, allowing them to lay down sandbags and plant mines. The note, light anti-tank mines. They can't lay down infantry stuff. You get the Browning light machine gun unlocked there. Currently, it's the only way to unlock that at the base, but then again, you don't have to research it. So basically, once you hit that point, you can get light machine guns for whoever you want. A very powerful ability. You get time on target artillery barrels, pretty much your standard artillery barrels, as you know from Company Heroes. And finally, you get the Priest self-propelled howitzer, which is basically self-propelled artillery piece which allows you to fire with a howitzer wherever you want, which is also quite handy. It's sort of again a throwback to the old infantry commander, though with some noticeable changes. The mortar half-track, not necessarily fully accurate, but it can lay down a smoke screen, and this smoke screen can actually hurt enemy infantry since it's using the ever nasty white phosphorus. It also has a veterancy ability, which apparently allows it sort of timed artillery rounds. I'm not entirely sure, I've never fully used it, but could be quite neat as well, though it doesn't see a lot of uses. The mortar half-track at the moment is a bit too inaccurate. The rifleman field defense, of course, now to sort of further toughen up your infantry to a lot more with your riflemen. The Browning light machine gun is a very powerful upgrade. Basically, anyone, of course, you have your units can be upgraded with it. It's a powerful light machine gun, and when with the riflemen, they can hit into a defensive stand, which works like hit the turret for the Russians. That is, they gain light cover wherever they are, they can't be suppressed, and more importantly, when equipped with a Browning light machine gun, they can actually suppress enemy troops. So all of a sudden you can turn a 5-man squad with that machine gun into a 5-man suppression team, which is going to be a bit of bother to get out of the way. Proper usage of this can really make your rifleman very difficult to deal with. Time on target, well, artillery, always a good trick from the old company here is call it in when your opponent is harassing you and you've got to fight elsewhere. He's likely not to pay attention to the region harassing and lose it. And of course the artillery self-propelled piece, rather obvious, look up on the sort of artillery video I sort of made to sort of basically get more out of it, but otherwise, you know, it's a lot more mobile, thus less likely to get knocked out by counter artillery. So that's it. I mean, this commander sort of leans more towards, you know, if you really like using riflemen, and then this commander is for you. It's also a good one for sort of dealing with dug-in opponents, you know, if he's really sort of, you know, entrenching himself in this commander, and again, you like riflemen, will work out well. It's also good on the defense because, again, the riflemen can easily build up a defense, and with the light machine gun and the defensive stance, they can also be very good at sort of defeating any German counterattack. So in that regard, it's a sort of... it's a slow tempo commander. It's not very fast, but it can work offensively, it can work defensively. It can knock down strong positions, though it won't really suit itself to rapid aggressive movements, so keep that in mind. And then finally you got the Armor Company commander, offering assault units, elite vehicle crew upgrades, which is basically another way of saying they get submachine guns of the bigger kind, the Thompson, tank destroyers, bulldozer gems with 105mm guns, and they get a 240mm power to barrage. Very nasty stuff. Can't, by the way, be called in on the enemy base territory, but otherwise can really knock stuff out. The assault units called in as UCPs. They are basically a 4-man assault unit. No grenades, though. They can be upgraded with a flamethrower. They can repair. They can also conduct critical repairs, which basically means your tank got a wrecked engine, pop them on it, and they can fix the engine. It won't be fully repaired, but it will be able to get quickly out of there then. It's a neat little ability, which is perhaps a bit overlooked at the moment, but otherwise than a solid assault troop, though note, they are not that durable due to the 4-man numbers, so keep that in mind when using them. Use the terrain to sort of get them close and not getting horribly murdered. The Wolverine tank destroyer is a pretty cheap tank destroyer, and it's also not necessarily a very durable one. It's got about the same range as a Panther or a Stug, but on its own it will struggle, for example, against a Panther, though in numbers, again, that's probably where I want it. It can actually do alright, and it's a reasonably nimble thing. Then you got the Bulldozer Sherman, a rather heavy piece of weaponry, can knock out infantry, can lay down smoke screens, can also set up barricades to sort of make it harder for enemy vehicles to move about, and also provide cover for your troops. But overall, it's a durable thing which can be used to sort of blow infantry apart or enemy support weapons apart. It's quite effective in that regard. So that sort of covers, well, mostly that of the ability. In terms of the commander, it's an offensive one. Not really much there for the defense, although the Bulldozer Sherman can sort of work things out. But it's sort of a slow, just sort of medium speed offensive thing. Can sort of allow you to get early and aggressive, knock some stuff out, do some damage, and then pull out. Though again, it does possess a few weaknesses, and you have to be careful you don't get too carried away with the Wolverine tanks, because again, they won't hold up to everything if you're not careful. So that's rather the Americans. Then we'll look over to the Germans one, the Oberkommando West. We start here with special operations, radio silence, infiltration tactics, infrared Sturmgewehr package, artillery flares, and the Panther command tank. Radio silence, don't bother. I don't know why it's there. It does essentially nothing. It hides all your units on the enemy minimap, but it's essentially nothing that can't be defeated by your opponent actually looking. So it's pretty much pointless. Infiltration tactics, a very neat ability though. For 10 munitions you essentially get a full grenade assault. Every squad member pops a grenade. First grenade squad to 5-man, pops a grenade, that can do a lot of damage. Again, note, only 10 munitions. Only 10. That's dirt cheap. So in that regard, it's very handy. Infrared Sturmgewehr package, 2 Sturmgewehrs with Vampire equipment or Vampire infrared equipment up on it. Really makes them nasty. They can't use sort of they lose the LMG though, so keep that in mind. But otherwise, powerful weapon. They do lose the ability to suppress at veterans before, I do believe, but you know, let's say it on that again, you do gain some nasty people that can do even more damage and can really tear apart the opponent at range. Artillery flares basically allows you to scout without having to sort of send in anything. The Panther command tank, very interesting. It's a Panther. Only Veterans 1 gives it something. Rest of its veterancy bonuses basically apply to its commander, and they get slowly better. And until level 4, they only apply to vehicles, but at level 5, they apply to every unit, which means every infantry unit around it all of a sudden becomes awesome. So keep that in mind while using it. It's sort of a slow burn commander. Again, radio silence is utter utter bollocks. It really should be replaced, personally, I think. And it's also very munitions heavy command. It doesn't offer any infantry, but again, you'd rather want to depend on infiltration tactics, so will give you that edge as you pump a grenade into your opponent's face. But it's sort of an offensive commander, not very much for the defense. It's sort of for sneaky assault tactics, getting around, doing damage, and of course the command path, all of a sudden you're adding some punch. That is expensive, and rather of course requires you have some other armor for it to work with, to sort of really get the most out of it. But again, it can be a very neat commander, though it's certainly a bit harder to use than the others, I think, and certainly not the most popular at the moment. Then you got pretty much the most popular Oberkommando West. It's also the most flexible, certainly also a nice throwback to the Panzerelite, the Luftwaffe Ground Forces. With the MG-34, heavy fortifications, Fallschirmjäger, valiant assault, airborne assault. It's a very well-rounded commander. You get the MG-34, which is essentially your only heavy machine gun, sort of properly working. It's cheap, though it's not necessarily effective. Though again, it gets 5 level of veterancy, at which point it gets effective. Then you get heavy fortifications, which allow you soon upon to lay down tank traps, flak emplacements, which are bit expensive in fuel, but still quite handy, and trenches. Fallschirmjäger goes without saying. Elite infantry can appear out of buildings, and can murder most infantry reasonably well, actually. Then you get Valiant Assault, which basically allows your troops to sprint and do more damage overall for a short period of time. Costs 100 munitions, but well used, it can really give you a bit of punch as well, a bit of an edge. And you'll finally get Airborne Assault, very expensive in terms of munitions, but allows you to sort of call in an airstrike around a point, any point. So if you know your opponent, for example, is gathered around one point, it can be effective. And then after, say, 2 passes from Luftwaffe Crews, or Stukas, a third plane will pop by and a Fallschirmjäger squad pops down. At which point you can sort of further deliver a killing blow. Overall, again, a very popular command because it offers the MG-34. And again, because the Oberkommando West lacks another effective machine gun, it tends to be very popular because of that. The Fallschirmjäger horse are excellent troops, and that's largely what we use for mostly, though again, the flak in place are not half bad. Tank traps and trenches are neither. Valiant Assault certainly should not be scoffed at either, but overall, very flexible, very novice-friendly commander, I would also say, certainly one that's more recommendable to that. It's overall, again, a well-rounded, can be used offensively, defensively. Again, it's a very solid one, though. It's not really going to do much with armor, though. It's very much an infantry commander. And then you get Breakthrough, an interesting commander. You get Breakthrough Tactics, Sturmoffizier, Panzerfusilier, Assault Artillery, and you get the Jagdtiger, Panzerjäger, Tiger Ausführung B. Also reasonably popular, though essentially only because of the 2 infantry units being called in. Breakthrough Tactics, while a neat ability, is not so much used, though it can be quickly used to basically cut off your opponent's territory. The Sturmoffizier boosts every infantry nearby unit, very handy in that regard. Also can target infantry to a further bonus. Can also force infantry to retreat, though if the officer himself gets killed, he can force retreat of all units. In fact, he will force retreat of all nearby units, so keep that in mind while using it. Panzerfusiliers, 6-man squad, reasonably cheap-ish. They're not dirt cheap, in fact they're a bit more expensive than Volkswagen, but still overall better than them, can be upgraded, got anti-tank rifle grenades, and regular grenades. They're rather popular when used like that, and particularly the Gewehr 43 upgrade really makes them nasty. They also veterans up reasonably fast. So they're all not bad infantry. Assault Artillery, very interesting combination attack. Calls in a barrage around 1 point, and then afterwards a smoke screen. So it's sort of one thing, you know, say, oh, I know something's there, pop it in, and then of course the smoke pops in, you sort of rush in and do some more damage. It takes the point sort of setting up a defense as the smoke clears up. Then finally you got the Jagdtiger, Panzerjäger T, and you know, at the moment, don't bother. It's basically the elephant but more expensive. Can shoot through buildings, which is nice, but overall it's not very useful, it's not very effective, and again most people just use it for the Panzerfusiliers and the Sturmoffizier, and that's also really what I recommend at the moment. Until the Tiger actually can sort of reasonably effectively hurt infantry, it's pointless. That's my personal opinion anyways. But anyways, this is again another offensive commander, attacking, charging through, a largely infantry centric, like the other one, although less of a defensive purpose, so keep that in mind as well, though it's a bit more cheap in terms of manpower. Also lacks a home machine gun, of course. So there you go, that rather covers all 6 of the commanders on both sides. I hope that will have given you a bit of a clear idea on the commanders, how to use them, when to use them, why to use them, and such, you know, and hopefully that way sort of get you towards a playstyle that suits you the best. This is Imperial Dane saying cheers, and wishing you all a good day.